Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to compare the GitHub Copilot agent, which just came out, with the cursor agent. We're going to run two different tests. First, we're going to test it in a new project. Are the agents good at setting up new projects? And then we're going to look at how the agents perform when it's adding a new feature to an existing project. We're going to look at a couple things. One, did the feature work? Two, was it able to fix issues? And how much manual work was required to solve those issues? And lastly, how is the code quality? Is it something that we would actually use in a real world situation? In the meantime, we'll be keeping score to see which one performs better, so you know which one is best choice for your use case. Without further ado, let's get started. The new project is going to be a simple web app that displays motivational quote, and it's going to have some simple features. I have already set up the project using npx create next app, which basically gives me a boilerplate to start off with. This is the most reliable way to get started instead of asking the AI to create every single script from scratch. On top of that, we're going to provide a PRD, a product requirement document, that helps guide the AI in terms of knowing what tech stack is being used, as well as what are the core functionalities inside the app. With the boilerplate project setup, we can get the agent started. So I'm inside the GitHub Copilot agent tab here. I have the agent mode toggled. I'm using Cloud Sonnet 3.5, and let's tell it to start building this project. Right away, we can see its agentic capabilities. It's reading our package.json to understand what the project setup looks like, and it's detected that I already have a default page here. It wants to install Lucid React. Let's give it permission to do so. Some error messages here, but we can pretty much ignore that. It's just a node version issue. Usually it's not a problem. So one thing I've noticed about GitHub Copilot Agent is that it's not very obvious that it's making progress. So all the way on top, it says generating ... and here in the bottom, it has the pause or the stop icon. But other than that, for example, right now, I don't really know that it's still actually working. Sometimes this could take quite a while, so I think there could be some UX improvement here. But it is going ahead and creating a few different files. It's created the quote display TSX and settings TSX, modified our page TSX, and added a quote .ts. Okay, apparently it's done. It's checked for errors. Everything looks good. The main quote should refresh. It will be manually refreshed. Setting mode is integrated with the Zen Quotes API. Okay, let's continue. And again, we can see it opening a new. Okay, it's running at localhost 3002. Let's take a look. So not seeing anything so far. Let's check if there are any errors. Looks like there's some errors. So one limitation is that it's not able to read the console logs on the front end, unfortunately. So we have to copy and paste this. I do like it shows the percentage of the file edit. We can click on it and see the changes that were being applied. And we can also toggle the diff mode. All right, changes have been validated. Let's go back and take a look. I guess we have to manually run this. All right, it's working now. Oh, wait. Too many requests, obtain an auth key for unlimited access. Seems like we're being rate limited, but this is actually not a quote. This is pretty funny. So it got working after fixing quite a few things. First of all, the rate limit issue was not the actual cause, because when I go to the URL or the API directly, I was able to get a valid quote. So that meant something else was going on. So yeah, I first pasted in the errors, it made a few changes, it moved the API call to the backend, which is fine, told it the error I got, made a few changes. That didn't work, so I told it to fix it again. At this point, it actually tried to create a quote fallback mechanism. Yeah, I told the AI that if I go to the URL, I get a valid quote, so add some console logs. Before this point, it added a bunch of fallback logic and a few extra files that were not really needed, so I told it to remove that logic. So here it actually got stuck. I had to exit the agent mode and manually remove those files and directories. But at this point, I got it working. I later added a few more features just to test it out. But all in all, it was able to build this end to end while running into one issue that required a manual fix. But let's see what it's doing right now. So we have the quote that refreshes every minute now, and we can manually refresh it by clicking the refresh button. But we can also change the refresh interval to a shorter time, let's say to 5 seconds. So here there's a countdown as well. Yep, refreshes every 5 seconds. So it's able to do it end to end, although running into a few issues, which is expected. As a quick recap, we tried the GitHub Copilot agent first. It was able to get it to work, but it ran into a bug with rate limit that required manual fixing. Now we're going to take a look at the cursor agent. All right, we're in cursor now. And in cursor, the agent mode is enabled in the composer window, and you just have to toggle to the agent mode. Again, we're going to use Cloud Frequently Refreshed Sonnet to do an apple-to-apple comparison. And we have the exact same PRD here. Everything's the same, except I've changed it to refresh every 10 seconds by default. Other than that, we're still using Next.js 14, still have the Next 14 boilerplate created using npx. And let's start telling the agent to start building the project. So what's interesting here is that it seems like the cursor agent wasn't able to detect I already have the next project set up. So I'm going to tell it that I already have the project set up. It listed out some of the substeps it's going to execute, and it's asking for permission to install Lucid React, which is fine. One noticeable difference is that in Cursor, it has an embedded terminal view, so I can actually see what's happening if it decides to run a terminal command. That's nice. It also shows a diff inside the chat. Most of the time, I don't really read this if I'm actually in agent mode, but it's helpful to have it here. So I'm pretty much just looking at the agent chat here. I'm not really paying attention to the actual editor window. Okay, let's see what it did. It says that it's implemented all core functionalities. It's going to show the quote, has a loading state, should auto refresh, default 10 seconds, and have a manual refresh button. Okay, let's see if it's actually implemented correctly. So no quote is being shown. I do see the refresh button and the gear icon. The UI not as nice, but let's try to figure out why. So the same error that we ran into before, let's just copy and paste this into the cursor chat. All right, so the AI thinks the reason for the cores issue is because we're fetching from the front end. Instead, we should create a backend API. So create a route.ts called the Zencode API. Let's see if this works. All right, that seems to be working. Does it seem like the refresh button is working? We'll just tell the AI the refresh button is not working. The refresh button doesn't retrieve a new quote. All right, it made some changes regards to caching and seems to have fixed it. So it should be updating every 10 seconds. And when I click refresh, it does retrieve a new quote. Seems like there's a little bit of a glitchy behavior where if I click refresh right before the default 10-second refresh timer, it will refresh very quickly again. So there's a few minor bugs. And let's try to change the interval to every 5 seconds. It would be nice if there's a save button, but there isn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the refresh interval seems to be working. Let's get the agent to fix those two issues. After telling the cursor agent to fix the two issues, made a few changes, and I can confirm that it is now working. The refresh button works. It does reset the timer. The UI for the settings is much nicer now, and it added a save changes and a cancel button, which is nice as well. So a quick recap of how the cursor agent performed. We told it to start building the project. It didn't recognize we already had a boilerplate set up, which the Copilot agent was able to recognize and got to work right away. We had to manually prompt it here. It installed some packages, which is normal, and went ahead and made some changes, run into the exact same error that we had run into with the Copilot agent. So this was kind of expected, and it was able to correctly fix that by moving the API call to Zenquil to the backend. And after that, the refresh button didn't work right away. So that's another manual intervention that we had to do, and then some minor issues after that. But overall, it still got it working within just a few conversations. Let's take a side-by-side view of our experiences so far with the Copilot agent and Cursor agent. So both of them actually got it working, but experienced different issues. With the Copilot agent, it was able to recognize the boilerplate project I already set up, so it went straight into work, and it ran into the CORS issue. But on top of that, it also ran into the rate limit issue, and as a incorrect fix for the rate limit issue, the Copilot agent decided to manually add a bunch of fallback code, which I had to manually remove. And lastly, there was a bug with a refresh timer. In comparison, the cursor agent had a little bit of issue with the product setup. It also ran into the same CORS issue, implemented the same fix, and after that, it had two minor issues with the refresh frequency bug and the bad UI for the settings modal. So I've ranked these issues in terms of small, medium, and large. Small is something that can be very quickly fixed. Normally just copy and paste the error message from the console back to the agent, and it's able to resolve it on its own. Medium issue, it takes a little bit of kind of reading and understanding what's going on. And a large issue, such as a rate limit issue, required me to go in manually, test things manually, and trace through the code to see what was actually working. So overall, I would say the cursor agent actually won this battle in terms of setting up a new project. It's a much smoother experience. I was mostly just copy and pasting the errors back to the AI, telling it what to do next, and it was able to get it done. Whereas the Copilot agent required me to override the agent and look into things and investigate manually. And since I had to investigate things manually, it was less agentic and slightly lesser experience compared to Cursor Agent. Okay, let's now take a look at the second scenario we're going to test it against, which is adding a feature to an existing project. In this case, the project we have is similar to Jira, where you can add tasks to this Kanban board. And the feature we want to add is to be able to bulk delete multiple tickets. Right now, to delete them, you have to click into it, click delete, and then confirm. So if you want to delete multiple, you have to do that multiple times. We want to add a checkbox to each of the tickets and be able to bulk delete them at once. Let's see how the Cursor agent performs first. I already have the project open in Cursor, and we're going to, again, go to Composer and turn on the agent mode, and we'll give it a prompt. The prompt is pretty straightforward. We're asking the agent to add the ability to delete multiple issues from the project board. The user should be able to tick a checkbox to select an issue and click a delete all button that deletes all of the checked issues. All right, after a series of follow-ups and error and bug fixes, it's able to create the checkboxes, and you can see that the delete button's there as well. But what's strange is that it doesn't appear checked. And when I check the next one, it actually checks the previous one. So there's definitely a bug here. I'm going to tell the AI to fix this. So I'm telling the agent the checkboxes don't appear checked until I check the next one. I'm also going to paste in this particular error in the console. All right, after the first attempt to fix it, the checkbox stopped working completely. And after another turn, it seems to be working right now. So I can check the checkboxes and the correct numbers show up here. But let's try to delete two of them, see if that works. All right, another error here. Telling the agent to fix this. Nothing happens when I click the delete button. Have this error in the console. All right, it's done fixing. Let's take a look. All right, the confirm modal shows up now. Are you sure you want to delete these two issues? Issues have been deleted, but we're getting a warning in the console. There's a memory leak, so we should definitely address this. Just going to paste it back to the AI. All right, it's adding a use ref and use effect to hopefully address the memory leak. Let's try this again. So we're going to first create an issue, and let's try to delete this. Still getting the same error. It made a fix in the confirm modal by adding use ref and use effect. And let's see if it works. Let's select two of the issues, delete, confirm. Perfect. Issues have now been deleted. All right, now let's try to do the same task using the Github Copilot agent. All right, so I have the same project open in VS Code Insider, and I have the Copilot agent open here as well. Of course, let's change it to agent mode, and we can see that I've reverted the changes, so there is no checkbox or bulk delete anymore. It's in the same state as before we started in the Cursor agent. So let's go back to our VS Code Insiders. We're going to use the same prompt we used earlier, have the ability to delete multiple issues from the project board. The user should be able to tick a checkbox to select an issue and click delete all. That deletes all checked issues. So let's submit that. After quite a few minutes, it has updated 6 different files. And when we go back to the project board, I don't see the checkbox showing up. So we're going to provide that feedback to the AI. The checkbox is not visible. So this is quite interesting. After many loops and trying to fix the checkbox issue, suggested to pause because Copilot has been working on this for a while. And I think it's realizing that it's now stuck in a loop. And as we can see, it's still not working. It seems like there is a checkbox because which shows the button, but the checkbox actually doesn't appear. So we are going to pause this. I don't like the fact that it created a styles.ts when within the project there's a clear standard of using styles.js everywhere. So I'm going to reject this change. And let's see. It also added issue TSX. I'm going to reject that as well. Just going to say, so at this point, I would really like to revert back to the previous point. However, it doesn't seem like I have the ability to restore. Can I do that? This will remove all subsequent requests and undo the edits made to 2 files. Do you want to proceed? Yes, actually, okay. So there is a restore capability, but it's not very obvious. Let's restart our client and make sure we're actually where we need to be. Okay, so I'm going to provide more information here. So I'm telling the agent it appears there's a checkbox that I can click on, but it's just not visible. I also provided a picture. Okay, this time it only made some changes in my styles.js, and it actually shows up, which is great. So we can click on this, but it has the same error that we ran into previously with the cursor agent, where the checkbox only appears on the second click. So let's explain that to the AI. There's a bug. I can click on checkbox, but it only gets the check off after I click a second checkbox. Okay, after quite a long time and a lot of loops, it has reached the conclusion that the type errors it's seeing are unrelated to the checkbox, which is a good realization. So let's test it one more time. Let me refresh the page. Okay, that's checkable now. Perfect. Doesn't show the number of issues selected, but that's okay. I didn't specify that. Yeah, that did not work. So let me refresh, and we will take a look at the console as well. Let's provide that information to the AI. When I click the delete button, nothing happens. I see this error, and I just pasted in the error. Let's try it one more time. Okay, that seems to have done it. Let's refresh the page to make sure they actually deleted. We'll just test it one more time. All right, let's select some other ones. Delete selected issue. Perfect. So what's interesting is that it got the job done, but it didn't really give me a confirm modo, which would have been nice. If I click on the issue and choose delete, there is a confirm modo. So in this case, it didn't follow my existing behaviors, which is not really great. All right, let's do a quick recap of what our experience has been like. So both of them actually worked. Copilot Agent and Cursor Agent were both able to actually implement the feature of bulk deleting issues. However, both of them experienced some pretty significant issues. On the cursor side, there was an issue where the page was just blank and took quite a few turns and manual copy and pasting to get that issue to be fixed. And after that, there was a checkbox state issue, which again wasn't too big of an issue. There's a memory leak, which was able to address quickly. However, the overall implementation required changes to 10 different files. When I reviewed these changes, at least half of them were unnecessary. While trying to implement the bulk delete feature, it changed a bunch of other code that was unrelated. So this definitely would not pass a code review, and I would never push this code to production. Copilot Agent only updated 6 files, so it's a cleaner implementation, but it didn't have the confirm modo. Now, I mark this as a small issue because I believe this can be fixed using another prompt. Errors aside, the Copilot Agent had an issue with checkbox visibility, which required us to actually revert. And it took 2 super long conversations to even get to the point where it recognized it couldn't do it. So that was very frustrating and wasted a lot of time. Similarly, it had an issue with the checkbox state where the checkbox doesn't get ticked off until I check the next checkbox. And lastly, the delete button didn't work at first. That was a quick fix using just copy and pasting. So overall, I gave both of them 2 out of 5 because I really wouldn't use any of the agents to implement this feature. Now, this feature itself is not super complex. It required adding some new states, some state manipulation and state management, and reusing some existing API endpoints. So it didn't really touch the backend. Overall, not a super difficult task, yet both of the agents struggle to do so. So I would be very reluctant to use agents on existing code bases when I'm adding new features. In summary, both the Copilot agent and the Cursor agent were able to complete their tasks, whether it's starting a new project or adding a new feature to existing project. On the new project, the Cursor agent was slightly better, and on the existing project, while both of them got the job done, I really wouldn't use the code in a production environment. So in this context, I would say the Cursor agent won by a small margin. A few other things I want to note. One, Cursor agent was slightly faster, and this is important because it can iterate faster, fix more bugs within the same amount of time, and that speed was noticeable. Both of them are good enough for working on small projects, but neither of them were good enough to work on an existing code base. And I'll be very cautious in terms of the code you accept from these agents if you are using it in a production code base. So that's a wrap for this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please like and subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments down below. Thank you.